Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 342, Meeks and Mild. My name is Matthew Turner, alongside Ashley Soden. How you doing, man?
Doing okay. Just as much as I love the nice sunny weather, the heat is starting to get to me a bit, and it obviously doesn't help that people can't really see. I've got a bit of sunburn on my arms and around my neck from playing football on Saturday. So can we just have one sort of breezy day a bit just to take away a bit of the heat? That'd be nice.
Yeah, it has been lovely here. I know that the United Kingdom does not exactly have the best reputation when it comes to weather, but we did just have our own Anthony Fitzpatrick in our Discord channel say something along the lines of where he lives in the north of England is now 7 weeks without rainfall. Was that right? Was it 7 weeks? It's
Yeah.
something like that. It's 4 weeks. I mean, that's still absolutely crazy. So yeah, anyway, I hope everyone is good in the chat. Speaking of our Discord, please do join our Discord channel. Link is in the live chat right now for YouTube and Twitch and in the description of the audio podcast. It'd be great to see you there through the off-season. College Football Podcast is back in June. I know that Ant is grinding the conferences right now, bringing you the previews for the 2025-26 season in a few weeks' time. Please do like this episode, sub to the podcast. You guys know what to do by now. And if you've got any questions for the show, then please do get them in. If you're in the live chat, we'll take them at the end of the show. We are getting on with this in a bid to, especially in the off-season, shorten our shows. I know that we've gone in depth for quite a long time with some of our shows, so it's time to reel things back a little bit, especially when there's a bit less to talk about each week. So maybe shorter, but then it relies perhaps on some questions from you guys as well, and of course we'll take them as we always do. So hope everyone's had a good week. Let's get on with the news. Jared Goff's wife Kristen has announced on her Instagram that they are having a baby girl. We knew that she was pregnant, but not the sex. So that's great. Congratulations to them both. And Brad Holmes has given the commencement speech at his alma mater, North Carolina A&T. It featured an excerpt from a poem, which I'm going to read to you because it's short and it is excellent. It's called Choose Your Hard. Good article on Pride of Detroit about this as well. It says, life is hard, but you've already... sorry, that's a direct quote anyway. It starts, marriage is hard and divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard and being fit is hard. Choose your hard. Being in debt is hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. Communicating is hard. Not communicating is hard. Choose your hard. Life is tough sometimes, but it's basically difficult no matter what you do, so you might as well spend it being productive, and it very much fits in, Ash, with the Lions mantra of choosing the gritty path.
Exactly. Like we know this regime is all about putting in the hard work, putting in the hard yards. Man Bravi's 202 balls caught off the jugs machine after practice every day. Goff having to grind through the stuff he went through with trade from us, from the Rams to us. Those kind of players. Levi, his journey from being picked with that back injury out of Washington to now earning himself a second contract and arguably being one of the best DTs in the league last year. All about the hard work and sort of putting in that graft. So it made sense that, yeah, Brad give that message to the young, impressionable minds that he spoke to and tries to instill it on them because, yeah, especially these days with everything going on, sometimes you do take a sort of knock on the chin and you do have to firm it, get back up, and obviously on the to quote Dan Cub, on the way back up, no off someone's kneecap.
Quite. All right. Other news in here. Oh, just before we start, many thanks to Danny Mac313 for resubscribing with Twitch for his 18-month in a row at Tier 1. Much appreciated. Danny, hope you're well. Other bits of news. Roster news. We have had 4 draft picks signed, the lower 4, so that's offensive lineman Miles Frazier from LSU, defensive lineman Ahmed Hassanin from Boise State, safety Dan Jackson from Georgia, and wide receiver Dominic Lovett from Georgia. Ash, you put in here a note about Tate Ratledge, of course, our second round pick. Wide receiver Jaden Higgins was the first second rounder ever to get a fully guaranteed contract. It does seem to have thrown a spanner in the works now with every second round pick basically asking for the same thing.
Yeah, it has done. And I think it can get done with this front office. It's just probably working out the wording because I know obviously with the rookie wage scale, they like there's a certain salary they're going to get. It's just working out the ways that it can be fully guaranteed. So like, oh yeah, what's going to be a roster bonus and all that. It probably has to work throwing a span into works, but at the same time, this is pretty usual. Usually the lower draft picks do sign their contracts pretty quickly. It's the higher level ones that sometimes take their time, and hey, could be worse. Could be the Bengals, where all of the rookies are holding out because if they don't sign their thing, the Bengals injury waiver is only for career-ending injuries. So could be worse. Could be them. You know, the stingy little bastards they are.
And we have signed UDFAs as follows: running back Kai Robashaw from Boston College, running back Anthony Tyus III from Ohio, wide receivers Jacobi James from UMass and Jackson Meeks from Syracuse, tight end Zack Horton from Indiana and Caden Priscorn from Ole Miss, guard Mason Miller from NDSU, center Leaf Fantanu from Arizona State, cornerback Gavin Holmes from Texas, and safety Ian Kennelly from Grand Valley State. And finally, edge Ahmed Hassanin, has been designated as the Lions International Player Pathway player. This means that even though he was drafted, he does not yet count against the 90-man roster. If he survives the cut down to 53, he will then count. So it means that we have an extra player effectively. And Ash just came to a bit of a surprise. There's a good article describing it on Pride of Detroit about why it's a surprise, because it affects effectively people who have at least a dual nationality, which he clearly has, and is has residency of Egypt. But it applies to people who only have 2 years at college. Well, he only has 2 because that's when he arrived. But it applies to non-residents specifically. So not only do you have to have joint nationality, at least, or be a national of another country, but you have to be non-resident. And it clearly is resident in the United States and has been for his college career. So strange that he counts as part of this, but welcome, because effectively we're now running at 91 players.
Yeah, exactly.
Could run 91 players.
Could theoretically. I wonder who that roster spot's for. Koshkov, nudge, veteran edge. But it kind of also explains something else that happens. Obviously, just after the draft, in the days after the draft, we were linked with an IPP player, and then he mysteriously signed with the Raiders out of nowhere, and everyone was like, "What happened?" This is probably what happened. Like the team realized, hang on, no, Hassanin qualifies for this. We might as well use it in the off season. Allows us to have that extra guy in. So let's say, I don't know, there's a tryout as we get on to in a bit. They want to sign Duke Shelley just to be a veteran guy in camp, just to help some of the younger CBs and that learn. We can do that now. If we want to sign a veteran edge, like a certain guy who's hung around in Detroit despite getting being a cap casualty earlier this offseason and is dating a Detroit rapper, and his nephew is a UDFA that we've signed, we can bring him back, and we don't have to really cut anyone to do that after the injury wavering of Antoine Green. It's good news, but it will account for the offseason anyway, unless he doesn't make the roster, in which case practice squad, and then we get a free practice squad spot. But given the sort of, not pedigree, he's got obviously big draft pick this year, but how our edge room is, the kind of enthusiasm he has, and that kind of ability just to be at least initially a third down, just run at the QB as fast as you can, like your hair's on fire kind of guy, that kind of disruptor off the edge that might be able to make a QB step up into a pressure from a Liam, from Hutch on the inside, from a Levi, from a Tyleek Williams. It's the perfect role for him. So it's kind of best of both worlds for both the player in terms of he's pretty much guaranteed he's going to be here, even if he gets to the practice squad. And it's good for the team just because they get that extra roster spot just to play around with, which we know the team likes to do. We for the past couple of years, sometimes we've gone into games with only 50, 51 players on the roster. We like to play with these roster spots and see what happens with them. So this is good news for us.
We're going to go through the players and UDFAs now one by one, back and forth, just to tell you a little bit more about these guys before talking about how Rookie Minicamp has gone. Now, in terms of observations, apart from a little tidbit here and there, we have one article each from Lions Wire and Pride of Detroit to kind of summarise for you guys. Before we get into that, we've had an email in that I just want to read out because it will give some of the live chat a little bit of time to respond to this. We've had an email in from a viewer, or I presume is a viewer or listener, called Ian Fern, who is from Mission Church Morriston in Wales. Thank you, Ian, for your email. He says, "Hi. I'm looking for a bit of help. I'm not sure of other places to go. My wife and I are travelling to the States in September and will be in Detroit on the 27th and 28th of September. I'm desperate to see the Lions play, so obviously I'm waiting in hope for Wednesday, Thursday morning the stars align and they have a home fixture for the 28th. Having not been to any NFL game before, and therefore not purchased tickets, I wondered if any of you would have any advice about the best way to go about it. Any sites, etc., or just direct from the Lions website? The budget for tickets isn't huge, so I'm thinking about being up at 1 a.m. for the release and booking then. Any thoughts gratefully received. Regards, Ian Fern, Mission Church Morrison." So I'm going to give the live chat a little bit of time to reply and see what they come up with, Ian, and then maybe we'll talk about other bits and pieces then and circle back to this. First of all, thank you for listening and watching. Appreciate you doing that, and also reaching out. For my own part, having been to a couple of games, not having bought either of them myself, mind you, but I have bought games for other things such as Michigan, Ohio State. The most reliable way to get tickets is to get them on the secondary ticket market. Unfortunately, it does mean you pay through the nose. I'm sure you saw last year that the ticket prices got to an obscene level, and frankly, I don't see that tailing off. So if you don't get them on the primary sale, I think expect to pay $500 and upwards a ticket. So if you say that your budget is limited, then that may be a non-goer. So if you can get them on the initial sale, that's definitely going to be the cheapest way to do it, I think. Otherwise, you may be relying on the generosity of strangers, especially with the distance that you've travelled. You may curry some favour with some of the locals who'll be willing to do you a discount. And given that how well we know Detroiters by now, they're an incredibly generous people who I'm sure would be very willing to show you around the city as well as try and find you a good deal on a ticket. So reach out to some people, especially on Twitter. We'll see if we can put you in touch with some people. Definitely reach out to the Lions on Twitter, because the social media team there is absolutely fantastic. They sort people out when they travel from afar with stuff like sideline passes sometimes they hook them up with tickets for games. I saw someone who's going over recently for training camp, and he's being hooked up with a training camp ticket, and I think tickets for the Hall of Fame games. So that person's coming from England. So there's definitely previous where they've treated people very, very well indeed. Otherwise, we will circle back to some of the answers here. Ash, I don't know if you have any other insight beyond that.
So based on some of the stuff I listened to the podcast and it's a reliable website from what I've heard. SeatGeek as well, worth a look. I know obviously that's probably a secondary one as well, but they've got some stuff on there. Like when you select the seats, you can see the view from there as well. So you can sort of see, oh yeah, if I do buy these tickets, this is what the view to the field's going to look like. You can visualize it, all that. That's probably a good way to do it as well. But obviously, just be careful with the secondary sort of market, because obviously, as with everything, including football over here, the amount of people that try and use that sort of interest and demand for tickets to obviously scam people. So yeah, if you are going through those routes, make sure you obviously do it in the right ways, because otherwise, unfortunately, you might end up without tickets and having wasted a lot of money. But I wish you obviously all the best going over there. I hope you really enjoy it. I hope you do get a home game. It's a good one at least, though, because unfortunately quite a lot of away games and a good ones this year, aside from obviously the individual ones, they can all suck it. But I hope you have a great time over there. I know when me and Matt went over just over a year ago, we had a brilliant time, aside from that first night getting absolutely drunk in the tin roof. But yeah, wish you all the best, boss.
Yeah, I will just say, by the way, secondary ticket market is more reliable there than it is here. It's more highly regulated because it's a more accepted method of buying tickets. And, if you buy one from there and it turns out to be fake, the marketplaces that have sold it on effectively don't have a business. So, Ticketmaster and Ticketmaster's resale site, normally very reliable. So SeatGeek, as you say, and other places. So obviously, skepticism is always good, but I think you should be good with those things if you can afford that, if you can stretch your budget to it. But otherwise, do reach out, see what you can find, because there are some very generous people out there. Right, Ash, you've got 6 and I've got 5, so I'm going to ask you to step up to the plate first with your first guy.
So I'll start with the running back out of Boston College, which is Kai Robashaw. He has a RAS of 6.49, great explosion scores, good size being 5'11", 209, and good speed as well. So he ran a 4.63 40-yard dash with a 1.55 second 10-yard split, but poor agility. He did spend the first 2 years of his career at Western Kentucky, then transferred to Boston College for his final 2 seasons, where he made 18 starts in his 24 games, toted the ball 338 times with 1,524 yards and 18 touchdowns while at Boston College. So that's 4.5 yards per carry. Really damn good numbers. He's mostly a power back option given his size and his skill set, but he does have pass catching ability. So he, this past season, he caught 24 passes for 152 yards and 1 touchdown. And he also is very good at the pass blocking. But unfortunately, because of the limited upside athletically, especially that sort of poor agility, and the fact that he kind of just runs into contact, he might never graduate past being more than a sort of goal line, sort of 4th down option where you need to get a couple of yards. Though he cut out in those situations, as I say, good pass blocking and pass catching as well. So if you want to do the old favorite PA power O on the goal line and just toss him a ball in the flat and see if he can score off that, he can do that. But in terms of his ability to crack this roster, 5% at best. He's got to really show out in camp and blow Craig Reynolds, especially out the water, as that sort of power option. Maybe some special teams there, but it's unlikely, unfortunately.
I'm going to have nothing to add on all of your guys. I don't know whether you have something to add on mine, but I'm just going to skip straight on after you've said your bit on your guys. Yeah. So that is Kai Robashaw from Boston College. We are going to then crack on with my guy, and I'm going to have to be very quick at trying to change over the names so that everyone can see who it is that we're talking about. For the people on the audio podcast, I have a little graphic where I can put up the names and places of people, which makes it easier for people to understand who we're talking about if they've missed the initial bit. So finally, I can get that up there. We are next talking about the running back Anthony Tyus III, also known as Trey Tyus, out for the Ohio Bobcats. Now, this is a really interesting player. He's 6'1", just a shade under, and 220 pounds. So he's a big, stocky boy. Arm length 31 and 5/8, PFF grade last year of 79.4. He is from Portage in Michigan, attended Portage Northern High School and was a 3-star recruit. 2023 academic All Big Ten, 2024 All MAC second teamer, and 2024 MAC champion as the 9-3 Ohio Bobcats beat the 8-4 Miami of Ohio. So championship winner. Or a conference winner. In terms of athleticism, apart from being a big guy in terms of height and weight for a running back, he's pretty strong with 19 on the bench, pretty explosive, 10'5" on the broad and 33.5 vert's a bit pedestrian, but the broad is exceptionally explosive. Otherwise, somewhat agile, shuttle and 3-cone, not fantastic, and fairly quick. He's got a good 10-yard split, 1.58, but then a 40-yard dash of 4.59 is slightly above average, but it's not on the fast side. And this really shows up. So he played 3 years at Northwestern before finishing off his college career at Ohio. And he really didn't do much in his first 3 years at Northwestern. 31 games, and he only had 504 yards on the ground in those 3 years at Northwestern. Transferred to Ohio, and boy did he take advantage of that chance. 237 carries in that 1 year for 1,215 yards. Yeah, that's 5.1 yards per carry and 9 touchdowns. He also had 16 receptions for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. So not only did he show production on the ground, but he also showed it through the air, where he'd never really shown any ability to do that before. Actually looked pretty good doing that too. So kind of exploded in both facets of the game there. He led the conference in the MAC in attempts and yards. So he had a very, very good season. And observations on him: clearly a big back, but really nice one-cut ability. He got a run a lot out of shotgun and RPO, which is the offense they run at Ohio predominantly. He has great contact balance. He gets hit often and just manages to keep his legs. Great vision. His first cut just hits the gap so often. It's really nice. That's why he gets so many yards per carry. He's got surprising speed and burst for someone of his size. So that 10-yard split really shows up with the ability to make that move. So vision's good, explosion's good, but then that long speed is perhaps a little bit lacking, so he can break clear of one, but can he beat the safety on the back end? What you will find, though, is when he gets close to the goal line, he can put the shoulder down, power through, or if he gets hit, he can still stay up. So really impressive both ways. It does mean he is a bit of a bruising back, but also that one-cut ability shows that he can be elusive too. Got a really nice hurdle that he shows off quite a lot too. He's not a stranger to it being in the air, shall we say. Really lovely receiving touchdown in the bowl game right at the end, which of course he didn't opt out for. Being a guy from Ohio, he needs as much tape as he can. Quarterback was in trouble, and he was on the check down option just on a sort of swing pass out to the far sideline. Quarterback got in trouble and scrambled towards him. Now, he could have maybe gone and tried to block, but instead, he was completely covered there. He wasn't even really an option you could check down to. So he released upfield just beyond the cornerback who was taking him, and the quarterback running towards him to his left just popped the ball over the cornerback for him to receive the touchdown. It wasn't anything much apart from the fact that you could see he made a heads-up play and he had good kind of football IQ to go, I know that I'm not helping here, so let me go and do something else. It's the sort of thing that you really want to see when it comes to someone that you want to take a chance on like this. So I'm quite bullish on his chances. These are the two running backs we have as UDFAs. And Tyus, while he's not going to set the world alight, he's big and strong, pretty explosive, good one-cut ability, doesn't go down under the first contact. It's absolutely what you want when someone's going to compete with Craig Reynolds. And me and Ash talked just before we came on about the fact I don't think he's going to compete with Sione Vaki because the skill sets just don't match up, and Vaki has all that special teams prowess that he brings to the table. But he's so much like Craig Reynolds in skill set. And I think he's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and I think he doesn't go down as easily. So, Ash, I want to put it to you that I think this guy's got a shot.
Yeah, I definitely give him more of a shot than the guy I took, which obviously I did because ACC bias and all. Yeah, like Eric even said in his sort of breakdown of them that even in long speed, it's David Montgomery-esque, and he put that as a weakness, which if you watch obviously Monty play, he's a bowling ball. That's not really a knock on him. Like the only really big knock on him is the fact that, and I'm going to bring up something that might send shivers down their spines because it's an old Patricia saying, but the pad level is a bit too high when he runs sometimes, which makes him a larger target for defenders to tackle since you're just giving them more to aim at. But yeah, like given what's been said about him by Eric in his breakdown, and then some of the stuff coming out of Rookie Minicamp about him, he definitely has a very good shot of maybe cracking the at least the practice squad, if not the 53, taking Craig's spot because of their similarities. He's younger. I think he's a bit faster. It's just, and he's probably got a bit more of the receiving upside. Like I can't really remember Craig actually catching the ball off the top of my head, but this is
he does a little bit, but not very.
Yeah, not very much. This is a guy that has that skill set as well. So yeah, while he's probably more of a Craig Monty sort of backup kind of guy, we still need that because obviously we've got Vaki, who you can maybe argue is more of the Gibbs kind of guy, and obviously special teams weapon, which is what I love about him. But yeah, Tyus definitely got a good shot, at least of being the last UDFA back on the to 91. If we need to cut some or one of them to bring a guy in, maybe, let's say, I don't know, someone gets hurt, do you want to bring in another guy? Robashaw's probably the guy on the cutting block. Tyus has got a good shot to make it at least till the end of the last preseason game, first preseason game 4, obviously, and then maybe he's on the bubble. But right now, he's definitely above the Robashaw in the depth chart for me.
Let's move on to your wide receiver.
Yeah, and I just said about a minute ago about ACC bias, and obviously I stuck with that. And my other bias in wide receivers, obviously, with the X, with wide receiver Jackson Meeks out of Syracuse. 6.65 RAS score, great size at 6'1", 213 pounds, good agility, okay explosion, but the speed is poor. And when I say poor, I mean poor. 4.84, 40-yard dash, 1.62, 10-yard split. Those are very not good numbers. Like me at my unathletic self could probably run close to that 40 and that 10-yard split. So for someone who, has been there, done it, that's a bit poor. So he spent his first 3 seasons of his college career at Georgia in a reserve role before transferring to Syracuse for his final season. He is very much that X-mold receiver with his height and weight and his skill set. This past season, he caught 78 passes for 1,021 yards and 7 touchdowns in 13 games. He has a good catch radius. He's able to sort of bring in balls that are a bit off. He can just pull them in. He's a really good run blocker as well. So PFF graded him at 75.5 in this past season. He's got a good special teams experience as well, but he does lack the speed. And when he does his route breaks, they're very easy to read. He does telegraph them, which limits his separation even more. Considering he does have the speed, considering that he won't be able to maybe separate on the route breaks, it very much is him relying, at least for now, while he maybe works on that route running, it is very much relying on the catch radius, the physicality. He's going to be your kind of Kenny Golladay kind of X receiver rather than a Tim Patrick or Josh Reynolds, which might not mesh well with Goff's skill set. So as much as I like him, it's probably a preseason thing, and then he might be a practice squatter at best. But of course, it might also be a sweetener for a certain edge rusher who's still on the free agent market, considering, as everyone's probably heard a million times over at this point, he is Zadarius Smith's nephew as well. So might be a little sweetener in there to maybe bring Zadarius back in.
Yeah, that might be the biggest upside of Jackson Meeks, I have to say. We really want Zadarius back. I think everyone universally wants some more depth at that edge position, so that would be fun. Okay, it's time to... I'm woeful at trying to get this sorted quickly, so give me 2 seconds while I put up the name for our next guy. All right, our next one is... another really interesting wide receiver to look at. This is Jacobi James, wide receiver of UMass. He is a redshirt super senior, so he is a little bit older than your typical rookie. 5'11 and a half, 190 pounds, arm length 31 3/4, PFF grade of 72.5 in this most recent season. RAS score of 9.58. Despite being 5'11", 190. And that's because he managed to do 17 on the bench at 190 pounds, which is very, very good. Elite explosion, 40 and a half on the vert and 10'6" in the broad. Those are exceptional numbers. But then a 1.54 10-yard split, a 4.37 40-yard dash, that would have been 5th at the combine. I think 4.07 short shuttle would have been number 1 at the combine for wide receivers, and a 6.883 cone. So this guy is explosive, agile, fast, strong, and at 5'11 and a half, 190. He's not the biggest, but he's by no means the smallest wide receiver we've ever seen. So this guy, might be, he's not Tesla because of the height, but in terms of everything else, he's really got that athleticism that you look for, especially in a kind of UDFA flyer. He attended Redlands High School and was part of the 2021 Big Sky Conference All-Academic Team. He was at Eastern Washington from 2019 to 2023. Played 37 games there for 825 yards and 4 touchdowns in the 5 seasons that he was there. So really did not produce much at all at Eastern Washington. He then took a step up from Eastern Washington to UMass. Played there for 12 games and had 50 receptions. That's basically double the total he had in his entire career before. Or the same amount again. He doubled his total. 839 yards at 16.8 yards per catch and 6 touchdowns. Small receiver, as I say, but plays much bigger. Good speed, route running and body control. A burner, that really shows up on tape. Mainly played on the outside, despite his 5'11", 190 frame. He played, I think, 80% of his reps on the outside. 85% of his reps on the outside. A threat on all areas of the field, especially on crosses, but also vertically, so he's going to stretch the field in both ways. He got national infamy because his quarterback threw a ball into double coverage against Georgia. And not only did he bail out his quarterback by bodying the other two, he caught it in stride and ran in for a 75-yard touchdown when really it should have been a pick six. It was a horrible pass that he made good. I really don't have much more on him. UMass tape and his tape in particular is pretty hard to come by. From what limited amounts I could see, he's sufficient in his route running. His release package is not fantastic, but he's worked on the outside so often that it's good enough. And then, at the catch point, he's fantastic. I think he had not very many drops at all. Let me have a look. 4 drops in this most recent season, but he had a lot of targets his way, and he didn't have much production before that, of course. Contested catch rate of 45% in his career, which, given his size, is really good. So this is a guy who's got athletic upside, has really only started to kind of burst out, and he is an older guy, and maybe the age is a part of that. He's a bit more savvy than the guys he's going up against. But given his athletic upside, is someone I want to give a shot. I would not be surprised to see him return to the practice squad, maybe get elevated once or twice. He has also returned punts in his career, so he's done 17 punt returns in this most recent season. So he wasn't the primary punt returner, but he did that for 4 weeks. 17 punts he returned. So wasn't fantastic at it, I don't think, but he will get there with it if he gets given a chance. So, someone who, if he got compared to Khalif Raymond, but a little bit taller, that's a good comp, I think, for him. Any thoughts, Ash?
Yeah, I agree. But with the Khalif comp, just in terms of, as you say, the sort of speed, the kind of the size, but also perhaps his projectable sort of route into the roster will be as that sort of Leaf backup, eventual replacement. Obviously, Leaf restructured his contract in this off-season. This is the last year of his deal. He will probably be gone next season, barring something. So we do need to sort of think ahead. And that's what Caden James sort of projects as that sort of wide receiver Z who can flex inside to the slot. That's what Leaf does for us. With the special teams as well, he's got the experience. And it's not like, Eastern Washington, where he started, is that bad of a school for NFL stuff. I mean, they've still got 2 receivers, looking at the position group specifically in the NFL. Obviously, one probably everyone in the chat could name because it's the obvious one in Cooper Kupp. But there's also the New England Patriot Kendrick Bourne, who plays a very similar role for that offense as a Z with some vertical speed. They've both stuck around the league despite playing for a lesser style of competition. So, it's not like going to that well. And then UMass, obviously, I know they usually play in the toilet bowl every season against UConn, but again, they're not too bad either. There's definitely stuff there. It's just, the one they have real year of production, maybe slightly lower level of competition compared to Dominic Lovett, obviously playing in the SEC every week. There's definitely foundations to be built on with him, with the athletic stuff, with the skills, the route running and the special team stuff. It's just, can the team be patient and sort of draw it out of him, develop him on the practice squad, which I think they've got a very good chance of doing so.
All right, time for your next guy.
Yep, so we're going to kind of go still on the offense with the tight end, Zack Horton, the Indiana tight end. So he's got a RAS of 1.72. Okay, size at 6'3", 251 pounds. Poor speed, so he ran a 4.95 40-yard dash with a 1.64 10-yard split, and very poor agility and explosion. So the athletic sort of foundation that we usually like with our tight ends isn't there. Like, we've got obviously Sam, who's very athletic. We've got Brock Wright, who when he came out, he was one of the most athletic tight ends ever, according to Raz. And then obviously Zylstra as a former receiver. He's got some stuff to him as well. So not really there for him, unfortunately. So Horton, first 3 years of his career was spent at James Madison. He made 18 starts in 28 games for them. He then transferred to Indiana when Kurt Netti, the former JMU head coach, moved there for his final season this past season. This past season, he caught 21 passes for 189 yards and 4 touchdowns. The good stuff about him is he's got experience at that sort of H-back, fullback role that's kind of open right now. He's also played at the move tight end position, so think what Sam Laporta does, and he's played in line to the Brock Wright kind of stuff, while also playing out wide. He's a really, really good run blocker for his size of 66.3 grade from PFF this past season. And despite the sort of poor agility explosion scores from him and that really bad 10-yard split, he does have a good first step to get open on his sort of quick route. So if we need someone to run like a sort of quick flat or a lot of sort of like quick seam, almost like a fade on the goal line, he can do that. But The height is an issue. So 6'3" isn't exactly the biggest for a tight end. That's basically like wide receiver size, to be honest. And that does hurt him, especially with the pad level, because sometimes it's just too low. You can lose leverage. He's got a limited route tree, despite his experience at both like sort of fullback, move tight end, and in line and out wide. He does have a very limited route tree, which does limit his upside as well. Like if he'd ran all the routes, and then you had less to teach him. But the fact you kind of have to teach him the whole route tree is a downside. And again, because of that sort of size, he could struggle with pass pro in the NFL as well. So while he's a very experienced guy who can play all the positions for you that you might need to in the preseason, because of the lack of athletic upside, because of everything you still need to teach him, and because of just the issues that will come from his height and weight in the NFL, it's very, very unlikely that he's even going to crack the practice squad at this point, barring something major. So probably going to be a preseason where we'll probably see him block for Sione Vaki to get a touchdown in the preseason. But that's about it from Horton, unfortunately.
Like I said, I have nothing to add, so I'm not going to try. Instead, I will just crack on with the next guy. And this one is another one that I think actually has a route to the roster. This is from Ole Miss, the tight end Caden Priscorn. Caden is a redshirt senior from Ole Miss. He is, why have I not replaced that from Jacobi James? That's very annoying. 6'5.5", 246 pounds, arm length of 33.5. Got 18 on the bench. Really puts what Jacobi James into perspective. He did 17. So they are similarly strong, or I should say Prescorn for a tight end at 6'5", 246 is similarly weak. But hey, not too explosive, 31 on the vert, 8'11" on the broad. Nothing to write home about there. 165, 10 yard split, 477 on the 40-yard dash, and moderately agile, 719 on the 3-cone, 454 on the shuttle. Credit to him for actually doing all of the testing. A lot of people decided not to, even if they were good at them necessarily. He also comes from Michigan. He went to Orchard Lake St. Mary's High School in Orchard Lake Village, Michigan as a quarterback. As a junior, they won the state title. He enrolled at Fork Union Military Academy as a post-grad before walking on at the University of Memphis. He's a 2022 John Mackey Award semi-finalist and an All-AAC first teamer in that year, 2023 All-SEC second team. At Memphis, he had 29 games for 681 yards at 12.4 yards per catch and 7 touchdowns. And then in Ole Miss, in 6 fewer games, 23 games, he had the same number of touchdowns and significantly more production. 57 catches, 850 yards, 14.9 yards per catch for those 7 touchdowns. Impressive strength and contact balance by him. And I say strength despite the bench, which obviously is not the best. And I will say, actually, his lack of bench press strength kind of shows up when it comes to his pass pro. This is not a guy you're going to be asking to play as an inline tight end. And indeed, neither did his college teams. He played inline only 12.7% of the time. He was either in the slot. Inline 48. Hang on, I'll come back to that because there's more context to this. I got that wrong. He pass blocks 12.7% of the time is what I should have said. So anyway, I'll get back into this. So relatively good route runner, decent hands. He's got a good catch radius. He's strong at the catch point. He has a very low drops number and a very high contested catch rate. So what he lacks in strength when it comes to pass blocking and run blocking, actually, to be honest, he really makes up for in terms of his contested catch ability. So 5% drops, and that's really hurt by the 25% drop rate in his rookie season at Memphis. He only had 3 receptions, though. But otherwise, contested catch rate of 67%. So, that's pretty solid no matter where you play. Rarely used for pass blocking, it's not a strength. When he lines up in line, Ole Miss run the ball 9 to 10 times more often than they pass. So if he's in line, he's run blocking, they are not leaving him into pass block, if not very rarely. So if you see him in line, if he plays for the Lions, it's going to be a run more often than not if we employ him in the same way. Having watched him a little bit more, though, It's just this guy is going to surprise you a little bit. He's clearly tall, and he's not particularly agile, quick, explosive, but he's kind of just good. And that's why I think he's got a shot to make this roster, because you know what? Tight end 3 is up for grabs. It really is. Zylstra, I think people are counting out, unfortunately for him. I think that Zylstra actually has a good shot to make this roster once again. But he's always going to be in danger from some of these guys. Now, Priscorn, I know that we probably like our tight ends to have a bit more inline kind of pass blocking ability, and he doesn't really have that. But you know, Zylstra isn't that guy either. Zylstra is far more of a pass-catching kind of wide tight end type. And Priscorn is that too, so can he beat out Zylstra in camp? I think he's got a shot. With that ability to catch the ball in traffic, to find the space in zone, he's quite actually good at staying in line to kind of chip block and then release upfield for a catch, which I know obviously the Lions like to employ very much. Brock Wright has done that several times for touchdowns to great aplomb. I think Priscorn could do that. So, you know, there's improvements to be made with his blocking ability, both in pass and run blocking, but he's decidedly average, but that could be good enough, Ash.
Yeah. So I've watched a bit of him, obviously, having watched Ole Miss offense for quite a few guys in this draft cycle. He definitely is that kind of flex, why move tight end kind of guy, very much in that same Zylstra mold. The only thing really going against him is kind of the average athleticism with the speed and the agility, and the fact that he's 26. So despite Zylstra being in the league since 2021, he's only 2 years older than Priscorn. So obviously Priscorn had 7 years in college. Like, there's a bit of overlap with them in terms of sort of their college career. So Zylstra went to Minnesota State till 2019. That's when Priscorn started at Memphis, but obviously with the stuff at the British Academy before, because he wanted to stay QB, which is fair enough. That's like the only things that's going to really go against him. But in terms of battle between him and Zylstra, I could see Priscorn winning it for sure, because he maybe does have that sort of bit more upside to him in terms of he's 2 years younger. I know I've just used that against him in the way the fact he's only 2 years younger than Zylstra, who's been around forever, but the extra 2 years and maybe a cheaper contract because he's a UDFA compared to a vested vet might be the sort of deciding factor, especially if in camp they can maybe teach him to do some stuff on special teams, which is always, as Brad has said over and over, Dan said over and over again, Dave Phipps said over and over again, and we've said on this podcast many a time, maybe to the disagreement of some people, special teams, especially with the bottom sort of those tight end 3, tight end 4, bottom of the roster guys, it's going to be the be all and end all. And if Priscorn can learn that and beat out Zylstra because of that, I will be not shocked in the slightest.
Right, time for your next guy. It's time to move to the trenches.
Yeah. So we'll go for someone who perhaps out of all of us, Ryan McCluskey will know best because he's a former Sun Devil, in life Fantanu, the center from Arizona State. Razu 3.40, good speed for a center, 5.81 for 5.18 40-yard dash, excuse me, with a 1.81 10-yard split. Okay explosion scores, but poor agility and poor size. So he's 6'1", 298 pounds. So he's very undersized for a center. He's got 2.5 years starting experience for the UNLV Rebels before he transferred to the ASU Sun Devils for his final 2 seasons. Over his college career, he made 54 starts, which is the second most experienced center in this draft class. He has 34-inch arms, which are a big plus for him because they allow him to recover if he does make mistakes, which is always a good thing. And he's got a good quick first step. So if you need to pull him for a block, a power block, or you're trying to get to the second level, or just get a quick sort of like reset on a pass blocking snap, he can do that. And he has good character. But it's very hard to, even Eric struggled to get tape for him. So that probably says a lot. And the fact with some of the stuff come out in camp, while he's got some versatility to him, he can maybe slide to guard like Kingsley Gurakun can and has in this rookie training camp. Because of the lack of size, because of the poor agility, he probably has an uphill battle to climb to the 53. He might be able to beat up Gurakun as the backup center on the practice squad, just because he's got a bit more experience than Gurakun in the college career. and he's got that quick first step and the arms, but Gurakun stuck around last year after the battle of UDFA centre. So again, even that might be a struggle for him. He might be again, what I said with Zack Horton, comes and plays third team centre for us in the preseason, looks okay in those kind of snaps, but then unfortunately gets cut and another team signs him to their practice squad to be a developmental option for them where they don't have as much O-line depth as us.
All right. Next up is also an offensive lineman. He is from North Dakota State, and that is Mason Miller. Sorry, I struggle with this a little bit. So, Mason Miller, he is a tackle, but he is projected to move inside to guard at the pros. He is a super senior, 6'6.5", 306 pounds, 33.5-inch arms, PFF grade of 77.2 in this most recent season. He played right tackle and left guard in his college career. He had a significant downturn in his PFF grade when he had to kick inside to left guard because of injury at some point in the season. So he was kind of trending all the way through his college career where he was a starter for the final 4 years at about 73 to 77. But in that 1 year where he played the majority of it at left guard, he dropped down to 57, found that transition inside quite difficult. As someone who hasn't watched a huge amount of NDSU tape and couldn't get around to watching a huge amount of it this time, from a basic level, I question the fact that most people were trying to kick him inside to guard. If he struggled at the FCS level with a kick inside, why on earth, even if the physicality matches up with someone who could kick inside, it didn't work when he's tried it this time. Maybe some NFL coaching will help in that respect, but we'll see. Anyway, in terms of his physicality, 6'6.5", 306 pounds, so a little bit lighter, especially at that size, than you would imagine, so he needs to maybe bulk up a tiny little bit. 29 on the bench, though, means this is someone who is exceptionally strong. He's pretty explosive, 28-inch vert and 8'8" broad at that size is very good for a guard tackle. And then pretty quick, 181, 10-yard split, 5'3", 40-yard dash, especially for someone that size. Weight adjusted, height adjusted, that's pretty good. And then also moderately agile as well. 4'7", 8 in the shuttle, 7'9" in the 3-cone. So dips under 8, which again for a guard tackle is pretty good. I think this is going to be a long shot for the roster, to be honest. Just in terms of accolades very quickly, went to Ada Borup High School, played tight end, defensive end and linebacker. He broke his right fibula in 2022, which is why he doesn't have so many reps then. In 2024, this most recent season, he was an AP FCS All-America first teamer and an All-MVFC first teamer. He allowed 11 sacks in his college career and 53 pressures. In this most recent season, 2 sacks, but 17 pressures. So he did allow the second most pressures of his career, although he did play almost double the number of snaps this year than he did compared to 2022 and 4 times as many as in 2021. So perhaps that is not a surprise. Did give away 23 penalties in his college career, including 5 in this most recent season and 9 in the season before. So a little bit of a penalty machine, even at the FCS level. Struggled with the kick inside. Someone who is quite tall and not that heavy at that weight. So he's got a bit of body management to do. Very strong. Enough agility, speed, explosion to get by in the NFL. That's the reason why people want to kick him into guard, but it hasn't quite worked as yet. So we'll see with him. It's just an inconsistent player. When you're bringing in someone from the FCS ranks, especially at North Dakota State, where they are quite so dominant, you want to be bringing on someone who is absolutely dominating the opposition. And because this guy did well but didn't dominate, it's someone that I'm taking with a little bit of a pinch of salt. The only thing he might have going for him, his former offensive coordinator at NDSU is Tyler Roll, who is the Lions tight ends coach. So he's got someone in the room probably fighting his corner. Ash, have you seen anything of him?
Obviously, I've seen quite a bit of him when I was scouting his other tackle partner for our offensive line breakdowns a couple of weeks ago before, the Seahawks took him with their first round pick. I actually liked what I saw. I know, obviously, the slide into guard isn't perhaps the best fit for him, at least initially. luckily for him, with the reports coming out of camp, we stuck him at right tackle. He did not move from that, whether it was the first team or the second team in the camp. He was at right tackle. It probably does help him, as you say, that Roll's there to sort of be the guy fighting his corner. And that's the good thing about it, is he doesn't have to be hell, even OT4 right now with how we got him. We could easily play him in the preseason unless he really, really shows out. He's probably practice squad guy, and then next season with a year under Hank Fraley, who I don't care is top 2 offensive line coaches in the league. Him and Stoutland for the Eagles could fight it out. I'd actually like to see that as a side note. Just them cage fighting. But he's got quite a lot going for him. Out of the two, again, the one I've profiled, the one you've profiled, Miller has definitely got the easier tracks to the roster, not just because he's got the coach fighting his corner, but because he's just better and he's got that experience, versatility. He's played all 5 positions at the sort of show his all-star game to show that versatility, just like his left tackle partner did at the Senior Bowl. And yeah, he did reasonably well. I know obviously lower level of competition compared to everyone else, but nearly 18 pass blocking, nearly 75 in run blocking. Those are some good stats to base off. The 8 RAS as well isn't too bad. There's building blocks to work there, and I could definitely see Hank Fraley at least turning him into a swing tackle at the next level. I could see that maybe his upside. He's never going to be a starter unless something major happens, which, isn't out the question. Look what he did with Evan Brown and his turnaround in his career under Hank. But as a sort of UDFA guy to sort of fight it out on the bottom of the roster, I really like Miller, to be honest.
Right, many thanks to Dan Pass for subscribing at Tier 1 on Twitch for his 38th month. Incredible run. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Dan says, hey guys, cheers for the lack of sleep these past few weeks. Early, happy 5th birthday. I hope I'm not late. We have had our 5th birthday as a blog, but as a YouTube channel, that is coming up in 3 months' time or so. So we will be celebrating that in some style, I hope. Ash, time to go for your guy. We're flipping over to defense.
Yeah, and we'll kind of go slightly back to front because I know obviously I've got the 2 secondary players. You've got the defensive line player who technically isn't a UDFA, it turns out, but hey ho. So we'll start with the corner guy, which is Gavin Holmes of the Texas Longhorns. 7.82 RAS, which is pretty damn good. Elite explosion, great speed, so 4.45 40-yard dash, 1.54 10-yard split. Poor size though, so he's 5'11", 178 pounds. So for comparison, I'm 5'9", 173 pounds. So get that in your mind. And he's also got poor agility. So he started his career at Wake Forest. He played 27 games in 3 seasons for them with 14 starts. He then did transfer to Texas for his final 2 seasons, but there he did play a reserve role. So while he played 30 games for them, he only started 2 of them. Obviously with the 40-yard dash, great long speed, and he does have some ability to play on an island because of that long speed. And he has played special teams, but not on punt coverage though. So while he has done kick return, punt return, and some kick coverage, he has no punt coverage experience. So while he's got the speed, it'd be very hard to him to win the gunner job, at least initially, because he's got an experience there. He does have experience in both press and off man, which you kind of need for our scheme because obviously we play man the most of any team in the league. As we've ticked that off your bingo sheet. And he's very trusted by his teammates. So Jade Barron, when he was asked about him in an interview, I believe he pointed out Holmes to someone's like, oh yeah, I didn't have to worry about what was going on the other side because Holmes was over there. Like I could trust him. But he's got only outside only skill set. He has not played in the slot really, which he might need to do in the NFL given his size. Most teams will start him into the push him into the slot because that 5'11", 178 is kind of small, and he has very poor ball skills. So over his college career, 5 years, only 2 interceptions, and the last one came in 2021. So I hate to bring this guy up because obviously we didn't exactly love him when he was here. He's basically a faster Nevin Lawson. Take that as you will. So probably someone that if he makes the roster as your bottom corner, if he can win that gunner job, he can learn that and win it. You'll be okay with it. Maybe as a long-term Khalil Dorsey replacement, you'll be okay with it. But really, you're not exactly trusting him to come out and start for you, except for if what's happened the past couple of years happens, you have to. But someone who maybe can compete on special teams eventually, practice squad option is certainly open to him, but 53, not this year, maybe in a couple of years when he's learnt gunner and he's now done the special teams.
Makes sense. All right. Our next one, my final one, is going to be the edge player Keith Cooper Jr. Now, it was reported that Keith Cooper had signed a deal with the Lions by the national media. The contract terms were released, so we all thought he was a UDFA. The Lions released their rookie minicamp roster stating that he hasn't signed a deal with the Lions as yet, so he's technically a tryout player still. I'm going to profile him just because I've taken the time to actually look at him and put some stuff down anyway, but hey. So Keith Cooper, he's a senior out of Houston, 6'3", 280, an edge player with 34-inch arms, so he's got a lot of length. 71 PFF grade in this most recent season. RAS is only 3.3, so he is not a particularly athletic guy. 6'3", 280, as I say. 24 on the bench is pretty good. Explosion's not fantastic. 9'6" in the broad is not bad. 30-inch vert is pedestrian. Good 10-yard split considering everything else at 1.7, but 5.08 in the 40-yard dash. It really does get pretty slow after those first 10 yards. Fortunately, edge players don't have to run more than 10 yards most of the time, so I'm going to not count him out because of that. But his shuttle was very poor. 4.73. If I was him, I wouldn't have run that. 7.51 and 3-cone is not quite as bad as the 4.73 shuttle, but you would expect offensive linemen to do better than that in the shuttle. That is really not good. So speaks to the fact that perhaps he's not great for moving side to side. In terms of him, his nickname is Coop or Grave Dinner, which I find quite interesting. His celebration post-sack is apparently something to do with that. Went to high school at Dickinson. He was a two-sport athlete doing football and basketball and a 3-star recruit. In 2024 at Houston, he was a second-team All-Big 12 player and a 4-time game captain at the University of Houston in this most recent season. He started his first 3 years at Tulane. He was at Tulane for the first 3 years, starting in his final year and being a rotational player the 2 years before that, before moving to Houston. At Tulane, played 39 games, had 17 tackles for loss and 10.5 sacks with 5 passes defended and a forced fumble. In his 12 games at Houston in this most recent season, 9 TFLs, so that's half the figure he got in the 3 years before that at Tulane. 3.5 sacks, 3 passes defended and a fumble recovery. And in terms of what he's shown on tape, he had a field goal block, which is pretty impressive. If you've got 34-inch arms, putting him to use, that's pretty good. Otherwise, he's got an impressive bull rush. He puts those long arms to good use. And with 24 on the bench and being 280 pounds, that's really got to be his calling card. And it shows up on tape. Good explosion on tape, despite it being poor on the RAS card. Don't let that spoil you off this guy. He really can make that burst happen, especially in the first 10 yards. He's got that first step ability to kind of beat someone off the snap. He may not be able to maintain that through the rest of the 10 yards. I have a feeling that basically his get off in the first 2 or 3 yards may be elite, and then he's just got absolutely nothing in the tank beyond that. But if you can win that quickly and hit a quarterback or running back there, who cares? He's got good play recognition. So he's good at reading run or pass. He does explode upfield. When you see people doing like jet motions and stuff like that, he's very alive to it, especially when the offensive line have taken, liberties or they're switching off a bit. He's going to really exploit that. He can disengage off blocks and make tackles really well against running backs and quarterbacks who are running through the line. So because of those long arms, he's able to kind of just maneuver his way through it and make some good tackles there. Inconsistent, but pretty good hand usage generally otherwise. If he doesn't win initially, that ball rush does work. He is a strong guy. I do think that this is a person who could be in play at big ends. Maybe not for the 53, but if someone gets injured, maybe he could be the first guy from the practice squad to be that sort of last guy in the room in that area, because there's nothing there despite the fact that he's gone undrafted and he's not particularly quick or agile, what have you. There is something to his game. He does have a calling card, so I like him pretty pretty well, actually, to be honest. Ash, have you seen anything from him? You are on mute, sir.
Yeah, there we go. Useful if I muted myself. I've seen tiny bits of him, like enough to say I can see why we're definitely interested in him because of that sort of the role he can play as that big edge rusher who can slide inside and passing downs. It's the kind of guy we love, much to obviously I know fans' detriment. We really want a true pass rusher like Hassanin. But yeah, it's despite his experience with all that, because the lack of athleticism, 3.30 RAS, and just he hasn't really developed any pass rush moves. It is a long shot for him to make even the practice squad, maybe, unless he can grow a couple of rooms and maybe show flashes of, okay, you can do this one thing really well. Right now, he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, but not at the high level that Pascal is, where at least Pascal is a startable player. Cooper's very much a bottom of the roster guy who doesn't really have that one thing to hang his hat on to really set himself apart from everyone, in my opinion. So, again, someone who will be here for preseason, probably see a couple of snaps, maybe make a play or two, but is most likely putting himself in the shop window for other teams rather than for us, barring something major.
All right, time to go on to our last guy before we talk very briefly about how the observations on Rookie Minicamp went on day one.
So, obviously, we've discussed a couple of guys that, Matt Finkel sticks to the roster. This is my guy that I'm really sticking my head out and saying, I think this guy can make the 53, and that is safety Ian Kennelly out of Grand Valley State. RAS of 9.06, which is really good. Great speed, so 4.52 40-yard dash, 1.57 10-yard split, and size at 6'2", 208 pounds. Good explosion and okay agility. So he's from Michigan. He spent his entire career at Grand Valley State, which is really good. He attended our local pro day, which is where he probably entered the radars of most draft beat reporters, and impressed with his performance. And because of that, he got extra meeting time with both Shep and Deshal Tenzend, who is our DB coach. And obviously, we also have a guy who does look at the safeties as well, but he's an assistant, so maybe speaking to Townsend is more of a big thing than maybe it could be made out to be, because he's probably going to be his position coach. He's got experience. Kennelly's got experience at single high, split shell, and in the slots. He's got very, very good versatility, but he probably projects best as a Kirby backup because of his agility, because of his athleticism, and because he's got really good ball skills. So in Grand Valley State career, he had 8 interceptions, 19 pass breakups. He also recovered 3 fumbles, forced 2 himself, and blocked a kick. But he's also pretty damn good in the run game, at least for his level. So he has 180 career tackles. He can play as a downhill run defender. And, since we said it with Jackson Meeks, he's another former nephew of a former Detroit Lion. So he's the nephew of Stuart Swizengert, who's played 6 games for us in 2008, made 9 tackles and had 1 pass defense on the twilight of his career. He was initially played for the Las Vegas Raiders before coming to us as a sort of injury replacement, and then had to end his career, unfortunately. The downsides with Kennelly is obviously that lower level of competition. Grand Valley State, I know obviously some theorized that he might have got offers to transfer elsewhere, but decided to stay there, which is a good thing. But if he did try, let's say, to go up and no one picked him up, slight knock against him. And he's also a slow developer, so he might take a while to fully get seasoned, in inverted commas. But as someone you can stick on special teams and, for me, be that true Kirby backup in terms of his skill set, I'm pretty high in him. I can see the team carrying 4 safeties, and I can see Dan Jackson being the Brian Branch backup, and then Kennelly being Kirby's backup. And that's a pretty damn good safety route, considering where we were a couple of weeks ago with Kirby, Branch, and then Maurice Norris, Eric Hallett, Lawrence Strickland as the guys behind him. Kennelly's definitely an upgrade on those 2024 UDFAs in the room, and I can really see him cracking that 53.
All I will say about the fact that you say he's clearly an upgrade is that the Lions liked, oh my God, what's his name?
Norris?
Lawrence Strickland. Lawrence Strickland made the roster last year, and that came out of nowhere when that happened. But they liked him enough to have him make the roster. So I think it's going to be a massive battle. Obviously, Ian Kennelly has shown off some good stuff so far, and we'll talk about that in a minute. He's got a shot. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, let's turn it over to the guys at both Lions Wire and Pride of Detroit, where we're going to very briefly summarise this. Do go and read Jeremy Reisman's piece and Jeff Risden's piece on those respective publications to have a look at it a bit more, because go and support the guys actually being paid to do this. It's not us. We're just very quickly summarising. But Ash, to kind of go through it very, very briefly, Tyreek Williams did a little bit, but otherwise he was held out of some because they're trying to manage his return from the brief hamstring tweak he had at the combine. Although in the limited amount that he did put out there, apparently he was particularly impressive and managed to, make his weight felt. Tate Ratledge was being cross-trained at centre. It was an interesting thing with the press conferences where he said he actually has experience at centre in his career, even though he didn't have it at Georgia. He must have had it then at high school. Tesla next up in terms of the draftees anyway, apparently did very, very well in day one, which is quite interesting. So the Lions had Jukes Shelley as a tryout player. I should have listed out all the tryout players as well. Let's do that first before I go into the rest of this. Wide receiver, Amarine Brown. These are all going to be rookies unless otherwise specified. Amarine Brown, wide receiver, in the league 1 year from South Carolina. Cole Schneider, quarterback, Eastern Michigan. Malik Taylor, wide receiver, Ferris State, 3-year player. Isaiah Rutherford, cornerback, UMass. Tavian Montgomery, cornerback, 1 year of experience with Central Kentucky State at college. Tyson Russell, corner from Vanderbilt. Duke Shelley, cornerback, 6-year vet. College was Kansas State. Rookies now, Naim Mohammed, cornerback, Kent State. Amir Hall, safety, Michigan. Dwayne Martin, fullback, Louisville. Corey Suttle, defensive lineman, Miami of Ohio. Linebacker Corey Flagg Jr. from Missouri. Travis Gibson, defensive lineman, 5 year of experience. 5 years of experience, God my God. From Tulsa at college. Malachi Langley, linebacker, Fresno State. Keith Cooper, as already mentioned, defensive lineman from Houston. Bryce Benhart, tackle, Nebraska. Raekwon Williams, defensive lineman with 2 years of experience, originally from Michigan State. Braden Fahoko, defensive lineman from LSU, 4 years of experience for him. And then Luke Deal, tight end out of Auburn. So those are all the tryout players as well. Tesla, he went up against Duke Shelley, who obviously has 6 years as a vet on him. So really tried to kind of play press against him. And it's a bit unfair to put a 5'9" guy against a 6'4" guy. But Tesla managed to hold his own. It looked like his route running was actually potentially better than expected. Had a couple of good catches in there and broke some ankles, which is good to see. Miles Frazier was actually repping at tackle. He was a backup swing tackle he was the swing tackle for LSU. As the primary backup, but played the majority of his time at guard, but he's getting himself cross-trained. Looks like Frazier's going to be cross-trained to tackle and guard, and Ratledge is going to be guard and centre. Hassanin, massive bundle of energy, forcing coaches to give him additional reps even when training is finished or they're rotating through different practices, so that's fun to watch. Dan Jackson, big hitter, but apparently he's not going to see his best time until they start actually hitting each other in training camp, because obviously he can't do that, and he's much more of a thumper. And then Dominic Lovett, have we got any notes on him? I don't think we do from either place, so that's unfortunate. I didn't mention the 2024 UDFAs who were also turned up as well. So 2024 UDFAs from last year: Eric Hallett, the safety from Pittsburgh; Deron Gilbert, linebacker from Northern Illinois; Isaac Ukwu, edge player from Mississippi; and Kingsley Gurakun, center from Florida. They've all been there as well. Any other kind of thoughts you have from this group, Ash, and this amount of information that we have, which is particularly limited?
Not too much. No, obviously we've gone through all the major draft picks. I know the Lions Wire article from Riz, he did especially point out the battle between 27-28, as he put it, 27-28, with Dan Jackson versus Kennelly, which is part of the reason why I'm so high on Kennelly, is because he supposedly really liked him. As for the sort of 2024 guys, the fact that they had a Gurakun, who obviously, as I mentioned just before, a couple minutes ago, is the UDFA centre who won that battle last year out of the three of them we had. The fact that when he was playing left guard in the second team. So Fantanu had left guard in team one and then was centre in team two. Rather, Ratledge was obviously centre in team one. It's a bit telling. The fact that they're trying to cross-train him means that maybe they aren't fully convinced of him. I know obviously they brought back Michael Nice as well. Grasgal's here who can do it. The fact that they're kind of looking for more options in the sort of depth at centre doesn't means that he is battling for his roster spot. Though what to expect is a stinky gator. JK. One that sort of stood out according to Jeremy is the Vandy cornerback Tyson Russell, who had back-to-back pass breakups. So there's someone who could be getting himself a UDFA contract if things continue for the next couple of days. So obviously they had another day of rookie minicamp, and now they've had practice today as well because a certain edge rusher wearing 97 is pictured in them, which is great to see. But so far, pretty much as we expected. So Tyleek, I know obviously, as you said, because of what happened at his pro day and because he just had such a long season, they're kind of working him up. Fair play. Ratledge, to be advertised. Practice trust training centre is good to see. Tesla, nice. He's making those flashes. So there's been a couple of ones that have been tweeted out by the Lions that are nice to see. Frazier, expected as well. Hassan to be expected. Dan Jackson to be expected. Love it. Kind of concerning. We haven't really much heard of him. I know obviously I said with Meeks, the fact that, said it behind the pre when we were talking actually, the fact that, and Eric and Jeremy both said it when I was asked them on the Pride of Detroit mailbag about it. The fact that both times when there's been Lovett versus Meeks, so at Georgia and then in the draft with the Lions front office, the fact that both times they've gone for both regimes have gone for Lovett over Meeks is probably a telling thing, even though Meeks had a really good play on Friday. Bit concerning we haven't much heard from Lovett. He might be the sort of first one since Houston that is a Brad Holmes draft pick that gets cut, unfortunately, when it comes to 53, which is bad, but at least he can come back on the practice squad, maybe work on it, and then he can come back next year fit and firing. But of course, I'm also saying this because then when it comes to late August and he makes 53, I can cut this up and make myself look an absolute fool.
The only thing to say about Lovett, as I was mentioning to you before we went on live, is that he had a fantastic press conference.
Yes.
Really showed off a sense of humour, was able to get serious when he needed to. I fell in love with him then, I'm not going to lie. That was really entertaining and someone I'm pulling for just because it's good to have someone who's a bit of a joker but knows where the line is and knows where to kind of push and where to get serious. That's someone that you need in the room. That's all we have. So we are going to get out of here. College Football Podcast, as I mentioned, back in June. Ant is breaking down the conferences for you guys right now so he can return to break them all down with you ahead of the 2025-26 college football season. Main show, we're going to be back this time next week breaking down the NFL schedule, which of course is coming out in the next few days. We're going to be splitting it up. Obviously, there's 14 unique games each season, with there being 3 duplicates in the divisional games. So we're going to be taking the first 7 unique opponents, and then the second 7 unique opponents. We're going to have some guests on, if we can wangle it. And we're going to talk about how those guys drafted, what to expect from those games. So I hope that you enjoy that show. I hope that you've enjoyed this one. You know where to follow us. We're all the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the group for World Pride fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. My thanks to Ash for doing this for me and to all of you for listening. We'll see you next week. But for now, let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.